Hello there folks, and welcome back to another video, this time again in nature. I'm spending some time on my own, and there's in the whole park there's only one mom with their child, and the child is goofing around, which is something that I really don't mind. Watching children play is kind of one of the purest things to do, because you're kind of recharging yourself a bit, reminding you of those moments when you weren't a drone living in this, sick society which imposes all sorts of things on you. And if you're not doing it, then it's gonna use all sorts of, strategies like victimization, right? They're the victim, you're the one who's doing the bad things, although you're the one being abused, right? Like, think about this, the idea of, society even supports this type of behavior, right? Like, you're being abused, and the abusee is the one who's also going to be called a crazy one, because the abuser rarely gets taken into account. Now, the topic of this video wasn't necessarily a topic, was, more like an idea and a discussion upon, things and how events unfold in this whole world. And the point about silence, okay? Silence is something very powerful, okay? Many people are being silenced nowadays, and, as humans, we've been silenced, as we were young, as um since we were young, we used to be silenced by our parents, because the more you do certain things, the more ingrained they are in your DNA, and the more powerful they will be when they get propagated to the further, to the next generations. And the next generations, if they're not strong enough, they will basically succumb to that and live unconsciously just as their parents did, because the child replicates the parents' behaviors. So silence is a very powerful thing. That is why there is so much censorship. But the question is, aren't you realizing that silence at the same time is also a sense of consent? Because when you're shutting up, you're kind of allowing people to do what they want, right? If someone abuses you in your life and you don't say anything, that's like your consent to accept even more, right? Like, it's like you're liking it, right? Not necessarily Stockholm syndrome, but you kind of accept things because you're not saying anything, you're not fighting against things. And well, the way things have been unfolding for a year now, one can really say that it's actually very good, right? We can see how sick society is. So many things about society are being pulled out, and um, all one can ask is, well, where are all these, celebrities, right? Where are all these idols? Now, it was funny when I looked at some kind of, statistics, and I also heard it from, well, internet sources as well. A funny thing that, well, looked, it seemed very funny in a way, is that so many of these how are they called? Oh yes, mass media, international, big time mass media companies, like CNN, have had their views, right, reduced by a lot. Well, this didn't happen because someone imposed a limit on how many views they would have, but it clearly goes to show that people are no longer, diving into the news, right? Playing Guild Wars 2 on an American server, it was quite funny to find out that they would call CNN the criminal news network, right? Or they would call NASA never a straight answer, right? And people are finally starting to stray from so many of these so-called mainstream aspects, because what the mainstream is basically what so many companies and people's interests want you to actually have served in your own life, right? They want that to become your reality and not be able to distinguish that from literally anything else. And since a lot of people come from, thousands of generations of complacency, right? Like, humanity's been in a kind of a dark age for thousands of years, right? Not necessarily Christianity, because Christianity has been only in Europe, and well, it spread in the whole world, especially more like throughout the karma that it has created, through its repression and hatred, uh, hatefulness against your own self, right? You're ashamed and you're feeling bad about literally everything, right? in Christianity it was bad to, even think about sexuality, but think about certain other aspects, right? Like, who are the biggest sexual culprits, right? Not necessarily the priests, but like literally everyone was hiddenly something like that, because in their unconsciousness and in their mind they have invented a god that is all knowing, but at the same time they would think that if no one sees them, right, God wouldn't know, and they would be free from the pains, right? Because religion, in a way, and justice are kind of the same way, okay, of manifesting more or less narcissistic behavior, right? You are creating certain things that you want others, okay, to be imposed on, right? You want things, to justify your insecurities. You want, to do certain things and allow yourself to do them by forcing others to simply comply, right? And when you have a lot of people in compliance, and also happily fighting against them because in ignorance no one can feel the real pains of life, well, that offers a lot of comfort. And unfortunately, ignorance is, like a splash damage, to speak in, video game references, right? It's always let's say it doesn't impact only you. When someone becomes ignorant, they are a hindrance to literally everyone around them as well, especially when there are a lot of people that want people who speak for themselves to be just like them, because usually very simple-minded people want everyone else to be like them, and simple-minded people usually in their unconsciousness live in a belief that everyone else is thinking and acting just like them, and everyone else already knows as much as they do, right? It's kind of a very easy way to think, right? It's kind of a hive mind mindset, right? Hive mind mentality, right? Everything that I know, everyone else knows, right? And it's even funny when you see such people approach you, right? And they ask something, and you can feel what the expected answer is, right? It's like, and then you obviously give them a different answer, and there is like, programming errors, right? This sign was expected, right? Like when you get one of those JavaScript errors or Java errors, like parentheses expected, this sign expected. It's like it's quite funny. And now to think about programming is that, well, programming actually helped me understand a lot more of the mind subterfuges, because the mind apparently seems to function on a similar code. Okay, it's much more complex, yes, but yeah, that's kind of the way. So I dropped recently a video on terrorism and how I imagine and how I envision terrorism, and well, I think I actually had a big point on that, because well, basically terrorism is anything that brings terror into people, but we are only allowed, and kind of shaped into believing, that a few people committing to some, yes, we can call them horrible accidents, right? Um, they are the true terrorists, right? But we have a big religion called Christianity, right, which has been for 1,000 years inflicting fear and terror in people, promoting a God of love that we should fear, right? Ain't that a form of terrorism? School is inflicting a lot of terror into children, right? And they are obliged to do what some teachers do, and those teachers are nothing else than puppets who have been, brainwashed by school before, and they are doing the same thing because, well, most of them are unconscious and they're doing just what they have been trained to do. And moving further, there are even parents, right? And all these, right? School, bad parenting that inflicts terror into children, and no one seems to care, right? And those terrorized children, right? Those traumatized children, they end up as the next generation of judges, politicians, CEOs, and all people who have certain power, right? And then they end up having their own children and believing that if they gave birth to their children, well, they are the ones who can also take the lives of their children, right? So it just goes to show how sick life basically is, right? So all this being said, yes, these are forms of terrorism that are constantly happening, right? So yeah, what things go like, well, they also go around, because a little dog has just stopped by, and I don't know, I threw it some bread and came out in nature to eat a bit, and well, I usually don't eat too much bread, so I don't mind sharing it with the little doggy, but apparently he's kind of not interested in bread. So he's just afraid of my sudden movements, as if it's kind of uh, hindrance or scaring it. I it's kind of goofing around. So the point of what I've been saying is, there are so many things that are portrayed in a bad light, right? And it's easier to portray others as the culprits, right? As terrorism, it's always easier to portray others as terrorists. And now considering how great technology and, video editing are, how easy can it be for not necessarily everyone, but for some big companies with the right people to even invent, news forecast. And hasn't it been funny that I even saw some of these presented by, very wise video designers, right? Like there was a moment, it was presented. A kind of riot or something in Russia, and the news forecast used images from Greece, right? Because even the writing is similar, but well, whoever knows the difference in between those letters, well, kind of realizes the fact that, well, it was not Russia. There were images used from Greece, right? And even in my country, there have been, an explosion of news, portraying the population as bad, right? Because people wanted to go to the seaside, and probably they have been having plans for a long time to go there, but the Kant virus outbreak appeared, right? The pandemic was put into action, and people would still go to the seaside. They would listen to the rules and the such. Some friends of mine also went, and they told me, yep, there's some little people there, like such small numbers of people there. They keep their distance, but the news, they would constantly say, hey, you know what, there's an invasion of people, no one wears masks, and there's an overcrowded aspect. And they were showing images from previous years, and it was obvious they were images from previous years because no one was basically wearing face masks, right? And they were mixed and edited, yes, with several situations of people wearing masks, and it's kind of amusing to see people swimming in the sea with a mask on their faces. Like, this goes to show how stupid and ignorant certain people are, and if it hurts some people, well, that's definitely a good sign that they're kind of waking up. So the point about these, oh, the doggy started eating the bread apparently, and it definitely looks happy in a way. And it's nice when you see dogs. It's not the first time I see this one around, and for some reason it's kind of it came out to eat in nature, and well, no, so apparently it is eating the bread. Okay, so I'm gonna feed him the whole bread piece that I have, because why not? I don't eat much bread anyways. So it goes to show how sick society has been. Thousands upon thousands of years of repression, right? Be afraid of who you are, be afraid of failure, right? Schools teaching people that. Be afraid of even trying to do things. Don't trust your dreams, but do dream big, right? Just dream, don't do anything, because like, dreaming is one thing, it's good, it's an engine, but if you do things, so many people will become kind of frustrated, right? And at the same time, the big question that, well, the big realization that came to my mind is, so many people are pointing the billionaires, okay, like, as the terrorists. Well, they have their own agendas and the resources to achieve that, but the point is, why are they the culprits, right? Aren't we the culprits? They are just less than 1% of the population. They have their own agendas, they have their own traumas as well. So they will be doing what they know, right? People will always do things to the extent of what they know, what they can, right? If some people just don't know how to treat other people, they will not treat other people well. So, point be said, yeah. they will keep abusing people, they will keep doing all sorts of horrendous stuff. But we have to understand that we are the terrorists of this world because we are the unconscious ones. We are cutting down the forests of nature. We are doing literally everything that there is bad, right? Traumatizing our children, investing so much money into warfare and such. And we kind of allow everything to go as well as it goes, right? We allow the press to simply, the news uh, companies to show us what they want, right? Although people are waking up, yes, which is finally a very great thing, but one has to understand that we are the big culprits, right? And unless we wake up, we won't be compatible with life too much because, well, the point is the planet is kind of sick, and the situation and how things are going on in this day kind of remind me of an anime called Blue Gender, right, where the planet decides that humanity is kind of way too cancerous, so it creates a bigger cancer, right, to exterminate the initial cancer, which technically is us, right? And of course big monsters appear, and the story goes on. It's not a big anime, but well, I got to see part of it, and I kind of can say I liked the idea. So yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed this rant, and hopefully it helps people open their eyes more and more. You're loved and appreciated. Take care of yourselves. Ferencan Bor signing out.